The Guardians will have full squad workouts this week. There will be a Guardians game on your TV/radio this week. We have made it through the winter, folks. That and more on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm one of your two co-hosts. Over there is Justin. I am Jeff. We will take the complaints to heart and get right into it today. I do want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, though, but wherever it is you get podcasts, and say that we have your Guardians covered every day, your team every day. Now that I have said that, what we do not have covered is team injury has already been hurt for this year. Cody Morris. And my concern, you typically know injuries a little bit better than I, so I'm going to throw this at you. We didn't discuss this beforehand. Me just always springing things on you. I'm kind of almost in some regards more worried about like a lat injury than like an arm injury, because I feel like lat injuries, there's no timeline and they just sometimes come back. And it's more the unknown. I would be more concerned about an elbow or a shoulder, but I don't know. Lat injuries are kind of a sneaky bad injury to have, I guess, is more what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it's more like a muscle versus a ligament, right? Like muscles can reoccur. I mean, ligaments can reoccur too, but muscles are, I don't know, muscles are just a different kind of animal, especially when you talk about the shoulder. That's why we always say shoulder injuries are the worst, right? Because that's the last thing you want. I mean, shoulders are objectively worse than elbows, but we can take 10 minutes to talk about it before we get into anything real today, because, we should just take all of our time doing all that stuff. So the first full squad workout is going to happen this week. I think that's Tuesday, and then there'll be a game Saturday against the Reds. They haven't said who is going to pitch that yet, but I mean, who knows? It's whoever's ready to go. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Cal Quantrill, because he's going to get some innings and some starts in before the WBC, so it wouldn't be a surprise from him. Normally, I would say for what we do, want to keep it to original opinions and original ideas for the podcast, but because it is spring training, because there are a very lack of coverage down there. It's just Zach Meisel from The Athletic and Mandy Bell from MLB.com. And I know Andre Knott, the Guardians dugout reporter, is there. So we'll take some of their notes and just kind of comment on that. Like I said, I'd rather keep it original here, but it is relevant to what's going on, and just pass along the updates if you haven't seen them. So according to Zach, Mike Zunino is going to play. The first game is on track to. He's going to be healthy. That's what we hope. That's what we thought. So I don't think there's anything really much to talk about there. He's good to go, and you hope that's the case. Aniel De Los Santos apparently has a hamstring issue, but he is all right for now. He's a little behind, but should be okay. And the other bit of big news before we get to the bigger news is Andrew Misiasek, who was a non-roster invitee as a reliever. He had a PRP, which is a platelet-rich injection, I think, shot. That's what they do. I forget what the whole term is, but it's
basically they're shooting platelets into your area, hoping it'll help it heal, which is typically like what they do when something is nagging or to avoid surgery. It's not a good sign. Yeah,
it's in his left elbow, so that's definitely a problem. He'll be sidelined for a little bit, so definitely a little concern there. Doesn't seem as concerned with De Los Santos, but we'll see. I wonder if that will take De Los Santos out of consideration to be activated on the Dominican roster when they advance. I'm not saying when. I'm not saying if. I'm saying when, because let's be honest, the Dominican team is going to advance, right? There's no questions there.
Weird things happen. Like, what was it 2 years ago when Team Israel kind of shocked the world? Like, it's like we'll have to wait and see. I don't know
who's in their pool.
Honestly, don't know.
Yeah, it's probably nobody that can beat them. Let's be honest. I don't know.
Well, I'm not. And based on our listeners, no one else is either. Knows who's in what pool. So.
Let us know. Are you going to be watching the World Baseball Classic? Like, we've had a couple episodes, and it's been like our lower listen episodes when we mentioned the WBC a lot. So let us know in the comments or on Twitter if you're going to be if you're going to be watching that at all, and if you have any whatever interest you have, so we can maybe gauge whether or not you want to hear more about that and our opinions on the Guardians' involvement or factor on that. So, yeah, Missy Osler, that's a concern as an NRI guy. He is probably going to miss some time. So I don't think he was going to be making the club out of spring training anyway. But for a guy who is inching closer to the majors and trying to make that jump, this is definitely the most inopportune time for that to happen, truthfully.
No, what is going on with him right now is just really unfortunate just for his own chances. I think, you and I both agree that's the big deal. It's just his chances. Which angle did you want to discuss next with our last few minutes before break here?
Well, we'll get to the news here that the big news this week is Cody Morris. So I don't think we want to go too off the deep end on this yet because we don't know and we're not there and we're not reporting on it and Zach Meisel is and we don't know the tone or how things have been said to them. But the news we do have is that he is dealing with another lat issue and he is going to be brought along slowly. There's not saying they're shutting him down or whatever. They haven't really elaborated too far. There hasn't been any sort of real detail given on that. Just that he is having lat soreness and he'll be brought along slowly. And Zach said they're considering him for a multi-inning reliever role, but they haven't really decided yet. So that is the most unfortunate news so far. But I guess as far as the rest of it goes, that's, so far it doesn't seem that bad. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's, I think not to give too much away, the information about Gabby and the information about Cody were definitely the most talked about things in terms of what has slowly leaked out on, through the Twitterverse, as it were, today. But oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we can discuss that more a little bit in a minute before we get to Gabriel Arias, because I think you and I both have some opinions on what they can do with Cody Morris and why this is a concern.
Yeah, so we will be talking more about Cody Morris in a moment here on today's show. But first, let's talk about our good friends over at FanDuel.
Well, Jeff froze on us, so I will give us the. Oh, there you go. Jeff's back. Jeff, tell us about FanDuel.
Sorry about this. My computer decided to log me out of everything very quickly there. So FanDuel is the number one sports book in the country, and the midpoint of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, because no customer is getting no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to the point score and threes drained. Again, we're going to stick with bet the over on the Guardians win total. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel/Locked On. That's FanDuel.com/Locked On to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Speaking of the NBA and FanDuel, Jeff, I have a winter report finally. I didn't share this with listeners last week because I didn't know I was going to be betting on it. But after a long day on Saturday in the cold at a hockey game outside in Cleveland and a little restaurant visit later, I decided to bet on Mac McClung for the NBA dunk contest, and I won some money there. So I'm not totally losing when it comes to bets. So still don't trust what I say when it comes to bets, but I just want to report that I did finally win one of the bets. So it's not all overs. My batting average is like 100 or whatever it is at this point. Not good enough, but it's getting there. Cody Morris. So unfortunately, Cody Morris has built up a bit of a medical file over his career. He had Tommy John when he got to campus in South Carolina, or right before that, he had some shoulders. Yeah, he had some shoulder soreness. I want to say his last year there when he was pitching in the College World Series for them, and that's why he didn't pitch in 2018 after the then Indians drafted him.
Yeah, no, there was some of that. And I mean, let's just be honest here. The 83 innings he threw that year is still the second highest inning total he's ever thrown in a year, too. So it's like, I don't know how much was injuries and how much they were like, this kid has had a lot of injuries. He's never thrown more than 89 innings. Last year's 45 was, I think, his second highest total in a year in the minors. And yes, there was the COVID year, but he's listen, we are big fans of his. We have talked him up across his minor league career as a starter. He has a 3.05 ERA. Now ERA, it's not the best stat, but his strikeouts per 9 across the minors, 12.8. He's striking out nearly 13 batters with a 2.8 walk rate. He misses a ton of bats. He limits his walks. There's everything there to be successful. But again, we'll go back to that piece I always talk about, John Sickles. What limits pitchers? It's health and it's control. And I mean, health just keeps up time and time. And, if he's the 8th guy in that bullpen, it just, again, points out that they have a lot of relievers. Someone's inevitably not going, maybe it's Eniel, who's the guy who comes back to earth this year. Maybe that the hamstring affects him. Like we've seen with some of those other players in recent years. Bullpens, typically year to year, there's a lot of volatility. There'll certainly be a role for Morris. But, yeah, I'm starting to lean that maybe that's his future.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even get to all of his injuries. The list goes also includes an abdominal injury, I think, in 2021 that limited his season. And then last year he also had lat soreness too, which is why he was delayed last season. And, yeah, like you said, that he pitched – the last time he pitched not even a full season was he made 21 appearances in 2019, the first time he was in the pros. So it's been a real problem for him staying healthy. And like I said, we don't want to infer anything, but this could, not be an issue. There's a good chance that could be fine.
Yeah.
I think what you have to look at his history and just be concerned. And, what 40 to 50 innings of Cody Morris at the big league level as a reliever from April to September is a heck of a lot better than Cody Morris pitching, making 12 starts and it being like 12 starts April to September. I'd rather have him in the bullpen in that kind of role if possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was literally thinking about this on Saturday when my kid has ice skating. I saw the tweet as I was sitting there watching her skate. And I was just thinking, like, you know what? It's almost like he's a bonus. And how lucky are we as fans? We're like, this can happen and it doesn't sink our team. Like the pitching prospect the last 2 years who was supposed to be a starter for this team, back-to-back injuries that could preclude that. And guess what? We got depth. We got other guys. We have the top of the top hasn't come up yet. There's a lot of things that could work well in this situation. It's nice where, I mean, it stinks. I think Cody Morris is an electric arm. I think, some projection systems that saw him last year really liked him and thought he was someone who could miss a ton of bats at the major league level. And I've been on him since, him back in 2019 when I started this podcast. It was him, Lavastida, and Ramon Burgos, who I still think can eventually make lefty. I'm not giving up, even though he's no longer in the system. Were like my first 3 helium guys I talked about on this podcast. It's just the stuff is electric, but I'm gonna almost view it as a bonus. And I think, it's fun to think about again, this idea of, at the end of the year, imagining like Clase Morris, Espino, Stefan, Henches, Karinchak, and just watching the other team weep. Like it's just, it's unfair. Now, again, someone in that group is likely to get hurt and or not be effective year to year because that's how relievers work. But it's also nice to have the depth where that's not going to sink your whole pen. You and I were talking before the show about Jason Alexander got hurt with the Bucks. And it took me a second because I was thinking, like, wait, who? It was like, I thought about Yare Alexander, the cornerback. I thought about there was an Alexander on the Bucks. I thought about Jason Alexander, the actor, before I thought about the Bucks pitcher. Brewers pitcher. I'm sorry. Wrong Milwaukee team. But like it took me that long to get to it. But it's like for that team, that's a big loss. For Cleveland, Cody Morris should be more effective than Alexander would be, but Cleveland is more able to handle that loss. I still believe in Cody Morris. I'm still buying on Cody Morris. I just think track record shows that, okay, so we're going to end up having a closer type that can't be a closer. So it could be a multi-inning weapon. And, that's valuable. It's not as valuable as a potential like number 2 starter, but there's still value in that. And It's nice that this does not already have our bullpen like, oh no, what are they going to do? Our rotation in that way. Like, it's like, okay, well, we know who can cover up, who's going to fill that spot.
Yeah. I remember seeing him in 2019 in Lake County, and I wasn't the guy. I mean, at that point, I was not like super paying attention to the draft outside of what you were doing for the most part. Like, you were the only person I was following for the draft at that point.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So it wasn't like I was like super in tune. I knew who they were picking, but I didn't know anything about the players. So 2019 was my first introduction to him, and I remember how impressed I was. And he's gotten better since then. Like, 2019 was a good year for him, and he has really improved. He's a very different pitcher, which is incredible. And like I said, we don't want to infer that he's automatically hurt because there isn't a whole lot of information yet. So we don't know for sure if, like I said, they're going to bring him along slowly. This could be a thing where he's, going to be okay and be fine. But we don't, the track record is what it is. You can't deny the medical history on him. So I do agree. I don't think it's wise to consider trying to get 150 innings out of him as a starter, especially when I said they could come, across 12. They could come across 10, 15 starts at the most. And there's no guarantee he stays healthy in the bullpen either. Look, it's hard to be available when you have an injury history. It's hard to be available every fifth day, right? It's hard to pitch back-to-back days too. Like, think about guys like Danny Salazar, and I'm trying to think of another recent example that would have happened this way. That they would have brought back, like asking guys to go back-to-back days out of the bullpen when they've never done it before. And more, with Morris's injury history, you've got to be careful about that.
Hench has never done it before last year.
Yeah, but he did have the one Tommy John, but that was really good. I mean, Morris's medical,
with the bigger injury history.
Yeah. So like, I'm just saying, there's no guarantee whether you throw 150 in the rotation or you throw 50 in the bullpen. There's no guarantee you're staying healthy just because you're in the bullpen. Yeah, it might limit your ability to pitch every fifth day, but if you put him in the bullpen, you're asking him to go out there and throw 100% each day. Like, he's going out there and not pacing himself. You could easily get his injured out there. So I don't know if the role, like, we don't have, is there really a study out there that says, hey, if you're a starter who got hurt a lot and they put you in the bullpen, you're healthier because you're not pitching as many innings? Like, is there a study out there that says that guarantees guys will be healthy? Because I'm guessing there's not. Not to my knowledge. I mean,
no,
this is the first time I've thought about it, but
no, and that's the thing too. Like, we have this assumption that they might be healthier just because it's less innings. But
it's more effort in those innings. And you're asking guys to pitch back-to-back days, which is very tough.
Less rest. And one can make a case, too, when you look at the closers in this league. The reason they became closers wasn't health. It was, they couldn't hold up as a starter. They couldn't make it through multiple times.
Control.
It's typically a control issue. It's not health concerns is what moved them to that role.
Sometimes.
There's not, I was like, who is the guy? You're like, oh, well, he didn't hold up as a starter, so you put him in the pen. I'm like trying to track and think, who is that guy? It's like, there aren't as many of those. I mean, you might have a point here where it's like,
there's no guarantee.
No. And that's, and then the only other thing I can think about, and this is just the ghosts of what haunts me in the corner recesses of my mind, was like, oh, this feels very Adam Miller-esque, where it's like every time, but the difference is Adam Miller, it's still, I don't believe he ever got to the big leagues, which sucks. But it's like, that pitcher, just different types of injuries. And Miller, I don't think, was never the big ones. It was just his dang fingers and like all the stuff that was going on with them. It was not, so that's what all I could think about. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's having some Adam Miller flashbacks, but yeah, I mean, it's weird to go through all this discussion, be like, time will tell. But I think back to last week where like he was, I believe, my first pitcher drafted in our ours, or I think about like when we did the mailbag on Friday, we were talking about who's going to be the Guardians rotation in September. And I think you picked Cody Morris to be the fifth starter.
Well, okay. Right? The presumption there was everybody's healthy.
Healthy. Yes. But I'm just saying, like, we both kind of sat back and, who knows, maybe he'll be fine, but it is interesting that like, we both expected him to have such a major role with this team based on, what we've done. Yet we're entering a point where he is just like that's Cody Morris this year. We don't know, but it also, again, just to go back to my earlier point, it's nice to be in a situation where you have the depth that this doesn't sink the ship. This is not like, how are they going to recover or how are they going to make that up? Or like, that'll be not that hard to do. It's not ideal, but it's not backbreaking.
Right. You just hope that he is healthy enough. I mean, like I said, 50 to 60 innings of him as a reliever is still very valuable to this team. I think anybody would like 50 innings from him in any capacity. It's just hopefully you can get them April through September and they're not just all chopped up throughout the year.
Yeah, no, agreed. We look forward to Cody Morris like shaking the injury bug and being completely healthy from this point onward.
Yeah.
That's the way this works, right? It's just going to be all health from here on to the end of time. Before we talk Gabriel Arias, let's actually jump in, take that moment and take our break number 2 right here. The words I'm not supposed to say. I'm not supposed to say break number 2. I'm supposed to say, make sure you join us for the Gabriel Arias talk, where we're going to get into, from my personal opinion, why this is not a big deal, why it should be a positive sign, and some of the silliness at least from my perspective, I've seen about this online on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. I know they said Locked On Twitter there, because again, it's our good friends over at Built Bar are the ones here, and I'm not reading the ad. I want to go and tell you what's going on the site. Right now, they're site-wide 15%, which is nice because at least half the time you can then also use the promo code LOCK15 to get another 15% off everything on site. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and recommend. I like the chocolate stuff. I think that grasshopper cookie is a really good one to go with. I have enjoyed the banana cream pie in the past. I don't think I've tried the lemon dip cheesecake or the maple donuts. I can't speak to those. I personally think they do chocolate and coconut super well. So if you see those combos and those are things you like, I would go for that. Big fan of the granola as well. And then on top of that, if you're like, well, I don't want to place an order, I don't want to do all that, you can go to Walmart and Sam's Club and try them today. So that, will also help show those companies that they're worth having. Head to the pharmacy aisle. This is so good for you. It is a pharmacy item. So go to Sam's Club, go to Walmart, or go to the website, builtbar.com. Remember the promo code LOCK15 there to save some money, or you can save on the shipping by going and buying from Sam's Club or Walmart. Go check it out for yourself today. Best tasting protein bar I've ever had, and kid approved, as I've talked about before. So isn't it to me, listen, Gabriel Arias is a good athlete with a strong arm. This is just a sign of they want to get him more reps. Like they want to get him to get more opportunities to get that bat in. I still think that he was the centerpiece of the Clevenger trade. It may not end up with him being the centerpiece, but I think that trade was made with him in mind. And I will live and die on that hill. I think they believe in him. I think Tito obviously believes in him. He wouldn't have thrown him into the postseason role that he had if Tito wasn't a believer in him. So I think this is just a sign that Tito wants to get him in there more. And listen, Oscar Gonzalez is not a great defender. You go a righty for a righty. If they feel like Gabby can be a late inning replacement for him, that could be a good role to get some reps. If they feel like, platoon partner at first for Naylor or Bell, this is just, to me, this is a positive sign. It's saying they want to get him more at bats. The only way this is a negative is if you're, Will Brennan or Tyler Freeman.
Well, I don't love it if it's a negative for Will Brennan, let me tell you that. But look, Brennan is going to be, Arias is going to be on the roster no matter what. I don't think he's going to the AAA. And the way Zach tweeted it or worded it today was that, there's not a lot of reps to be had in the infield because let's be honest, Andres Gimenez is going to play every day. We know Jose Ramirez wants to be in the lineup every day. You could see maybe they'll revisit Arias at first, but if Josh Bell is going to be there every day as a switch hitter, then there's less chances for him to be there now. You don't need to platoon. It's fine.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Of
Do
course.
Everyone's heard thing. So just what you said there. So let's say, Bell is going to play first. Does that mean when there is a platoon situation that, maybe that's day like Jimenez plays DH or Rosario or like maybe it's a 3-man rotation of those guys getting a day off in the field?
Yeah,
is that what we're thinking, that he would then probably play those 3 positions opposite Naylor, and you would let him basically like they did with Jose when he was hurt, but now more of a permanent thing, but maybe give those other guys bigger rests?
Well, yeah, I think that's why people had said, and we had even said that there's a reason that they have an extra spot on their roster to add a hitter if they wanted to. If they wanted to go out and trade for somebody or sign somebody who they thought was worth bringing in, they could have because of what you're talking about. If if you are not going to play Josh Naylor against most left-handers, then Bell's going to start at first base for you. Gonzalez probably in right field. You have an open spot at DH. You can do whatever you want with. You could DH Gonzalez and put Brennan out there, or like you said, they can DH Gonzalez and put Arias in right field. So this is why we kept saying there is an extra room for a hitter if they really wanted to add one. They have not. So yeah, they could definitely against left-handers decide, okay, Jimenez can DH today, or Jose can DH today, and Arias can fill in at second or third, or he can maybe play the outfield if they decide they want to double up on right-handers and they want to use Gonzalez at DH and Arias in right field, and they can, give themselves a larger platoon advantage. It makes a ton of sense. And I think it's hard to guess how he's going to look defensively out there because he's probably really never done it. He's got plenty of range. Like, that's not going to be an issue. The range isn't an issue. The speed's not an issue. The arm is certainly not the issue. It's just going to be figuring out how to, read the ball off the bat as a right fielder versus you don't have to worry about that as a shortstop, and how many reps he's going to get too. That's the hard part. Cause look, you want to get Oscar Gonzalez reps. You want to get Will Brennan reps. George Valera is in camp on the 40-man roster, obviously. So is Noel if they continue to work him in the outfield, and Quan and Straw are strongholds in center and left. I feel like there's not a ton of reps out there either. So it's weird. But if you want to really push the platoon advantage, it's fine. I just hope he can do it and it doesn't take away from his bat, because the bat is the issue, right? Like, the glove we know is not the issue here. The glove, we feel like if you put him at shortstop every day, you're going to get plus defense out of him. The issue is the bat, and it's not necessarily the approach. He doesn't swing and miss a lot. He's not like a strikeout guy. The issue really is he does strike out a bit, but it's just really how much quality contact he makes and how often he makes that good contact, because he does have a bit of a groove swing, as everyone has said. But I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, last year they tried so hard. 2 years in a row, they've tried so hard with Ahmed Rosario to try to move him to center field. First it was, we want Jimenez to play shortstop, so we're going to move Ahmed to the outfield. And then they did that 2 years in a row, and it just never worked with him. And I'm like, okay, well, they're doing it with a younger player now. Maybe it makes more sense to do with Arias now when he hasn't played, 4 major league seasons as a shortstop and like Ahmed had before. But I don't know. It's just everybody handles it different, because Ahmed, even despite his shortcomings at shortstop, Ahmed is still a plus athlete. He is a great athlete and a great runner. And that clearly shows you the fact that he hasn't locked down an outfield spot or hasn't taken to the outfield like they had hoped. Tells you how hard it is, but also how hard it is to do it in spring training. Like, it's one thing to go, okay, we're going to have this guy go to AAA, like Nolan Jones. Nolan Jones started learning outfield at AAA. He didn't do it at the major league level, right? To have a guy in your major league roster who has 3 weeks of outfield reps, and I'm not saying they're going to make him an outfielder all the time, but I don't know. I don't want to expect too much out of Arias, and I don't want it to take away more from the bat, because they really need him to find some consistency with the bat, because if he does ever get there with the bat, you're talking about a very good everyday regular player. So I don't know. It's a tricky situation depending on how they handle it. I just there's a lot of ways I feel like it can go, but who knows how long they're, really going to commit to this outfield thing with him.
So just as you were talking, something hit me. It's kind of related, but just kind of interesting. That whole idea of why couldn't Ahmed jump to the outfield? Why could outfield be tricky for Gabby? I don't know what this is based off of. I can just say I've spent a lot of hours, I should say, playing OTP baseball, and probably hundreds of seasons, honestly, and hundreds of hours, if I'm being honest. And it is interesting that based on their database that they employ, that there are a lot of players. I would say the position that a player can only play one position at outside of pitcher or catcher is shortstop. For whatever reason, something in that database that they collect and put together shows that this must not be uncommon. It happens all the time in that game. There's a lot of times where I'm like, well, crud, I got 2 shortstops that can only play shortstop. I guess I'm flipping one, even though I want to put them at second, but they don't have a range for that. I can't even put them there. So again, it's just interesting. It doesn't really relate necessarily to anything, but it's an interesting thing that a simulation-based baseball game has kind of shown that I don't know what's, if this is based on anything, but I just thought I'd throw it out there as kind of a fun little wrinkle on what we're discussing, that, their simulations or whatever data they're using has made that the number 3 position in terms of lack of flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody can do it. Like movie star Ron Washington in the Moneyball says it's, he tells Chris Pratt, Scott Hatterberg to learn first base, and he says it's not that hard. And movie Ron Washington says it's incredibly hard. They're all incredibly hard. Okay, this is major leagues. They're all incredibly hard. I haven't spent years.
You gotta love a movie that fails to mention Mulder, Hudson, or Zito. That's all.
Yeah, I know.
I love that book.
And Miguel Tejada.
And Miguel Tejada, yeah, just kind of left all the stars off because those aren't the interesting parts. But we already did our movie talk last week. But go ahead and comment below if you would like, or give us. I mean, like I said, I like Moneyball because I thought it was an interesting perspective inside a draft room. So go ahead and recommend any other books like that if you know them. But yeah, no, I think this is a net positive. So. We have our next one, Gavin Williams, and should I go with what 80% of people say, even though I know it's not correct, and call him Bibee instead of Bibee?
No, you were right. No, it's the other way around.
Yeah, it is Bibee. Man, see, this is my problem with trying to be smart here. Now everyone sees my pronunciation issues. Now I'm going to get it wrong all the time. My ADD dyslexia is going to kill me. But man, I feel like everyone's got him. Not that I should comment on anyone's pronunciation. They're throwing BP in big league camp, so obviously they're gonna break with this team, right? They're gonna make the 26-man roster. This is our 4th and 5th starters.
Yeah. Whatever. Nobody's talking about Plesac or Savali, so they're definitely on the roster because they pitched BP one time. I don't know. I saw Mandy Bell tweet that, and I thought that was cool just to see them both up in big league camp. Yeah. And I after I tweeted that, I had said, we'd heard that Bibee had quite a few good innings on the mound against some of the younger big league hitters that he's faced in BP. And everybody was just kind of jumping on and saying, well, why weren't they invited to camp? And someone said, well, is it because someone's comment was, well, is it because they didn't want to get too excited about these kids like this year? And I was like, well, that was kind of the thing with Bieber. Remember they had said that, we kept him away, just so Tito didn't want him to break camp in April. And we don't know if that's the case here, but the fact that they're throwing big league BP right now, and I know people are asking like, oh, where's Espino? No one's talking about him. As lastly heard, he's ready to go for spring training. But we know Bibee has been in Arizona for months throwing, and I assume Williams has been too. But just good to see them getting some reps against big league hitters at this point in camp. And like I said, it'd be fun if we could see them in a big league game early on while you're still building everybody's arms up, where you need 7 or 9 pitchers a game to get through a spring training game. Who knows? Maybe he'll pitch Saturday. The Guardians and Reds open, I believe, at 3:00 Eastern time on Saturday, and that game is going to be televised by what is still called the Valley Sports Network. And if you have one of the 2 or 3 remaining outlets that still carries the network, to watch that, but or you can hear on the radio, I think too. So that'll be exciting.
I'd be curious if has anyone announced any attempt to do some kind of integration with the MLB thing. I know, was it if you're a T-Mobile person, like I said, you've gotten it free the last few years. This week is unfortunately not the MLB one they're getting free. It's MLS is the free one this week. So maybe next week you'll get MLB free, but it's coming. It's like I said, that's been pretty much a consistent thing through them. But I'll have to let people know what else is under the hood when I eventually get that. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have baseball happening. We'll talk about the I Hate Steve Bannon fan club, and
that's the wrong Steve.
That is the wrong Steve. Steve
That's
Cohen.
A whole different podcast.
That is a whole different one. The I Hate Steve Cohen club that the MLB owners are making. I guess I'm just used to hearing people talk about hate with certain people. But yeah, Steve Cohen podcast. That group, we're going to talk about some really interesting statements from the Phillies owner. And we'll get into some of the college baseball, because baseball happened this past weekend. I mean,
it was fun.
Paying attention, you got to see, some good matchups. Yeah, a lot of it were, Youngstown versus Wake. That's one of the marquee ones in the state. So, but it's always fun to kind of check out and see what happens. And there's some guys who definitely made some names for themselves or showed some nice changes. So we're going to get into all that in the after show. Was there anything else you wanted to hit before we jump into that?
Nope. Baseball's back this week. I officially made it through the winter. Even though it's going to be freezing this week in Cleveland, I think. It was warm today. Not that anybody cares what I think about the weather, because that's not why you're here.
It will not be the winter of our discontent, but the winter of glorious summer emerging. I've been Jeff Ellis. That's Justin. I want to thank you all for listening, rating, reviewing, downloading. It helps. Again, comment in the comments, things you'd like us to talk about. For the person who asked about comps, I threw some at you, but we'll have some better ones that we'll debate and save that for our next mailbag to Chris, who asked for those. But again, thank you all for listening, doing your daily part, being part of the Locked On Guardians team, and go Guardians, go. So I'm going to get this flagged and taken down because of my Steve confusion. I have Steve blindness. I can't tell Steve's apart.
Nice. Okay. I didn't know that was a specific condition.
Yeah, it's hard. My first cousin is Steve. And the only guy I went to high school with who I know lives in Wisconsin is a Steve. It's just there's too many Steve. I thought this was a smart move by the White Sox. Elvis Andrus is, listen, I hate that the White Sox signed him. I hate this move. I absolutely hate it because he kills the Guardians in a way he doesn't even approach any other team. You go and you look at his team, 200 OPS points higher against the Guardians than any other team. The White Sox had a glaring hole at second base. I'm assuming he's probably going to play, second for them every day. And this is potentially a 2 to 3 win improvement for them at second base. If he hits like he hit last year, it could be a 4 to 5 win improvement over what they're potentially posting. I think he ended up being worth 4.5 wins last year. I could be wrong. It was a surprisingly high number because he had a pretty good offensive season. So I flipping hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. He kills the Guardians. He's going to the division rival. He's shoring up their biggest offensive weakness right now. That lineup, it's not necessarily scary, but it's got competent or interesting young players at every spot. If they can somehow flip Gavin Sheets for some relief help just because of some of the stuff going on in their pen, they'll be – listen, the White Sox are the team. Honestly, they scare me more than the Twins. I'll just state it right now. They scare me more than the Twins.
Really? I feel the exact opposite. I feel like the White Sox are not going to be – they'll be fine.
Offense, I think it's going to be good.
I don't know. Luis Robert is probably going to spend – 20 to 40 games on the IL. Eloy might too, although it might be less because he's going to DH full time now. Yasmani Grandal was terrible last year, so I'm not super worried about that. Elvis Andrews is an upgrade. They were going to either start
Rami Michael, right?
Rami Gonzalez, they're really into apparently, or it could have been they were going to start Larry Garcia for a hot second. I don't know. I wasn't really concerned about it. Andrews is fine. Yeah, he kills the Guardians, but he had a 3.5 win season last year because he hit 249, had a 105 WRC plus. He had 17 homers, 18 steals. So a lot of volume, which was good for him because that's what he was trying to build up in Oakland. What did he do when he got to Chicago? That's what I'd be curious to look at. Let me see the splits, but everything wasn't great. You look at I know a quick screenshot of this player's MLB Savant page isn't exactly the world's greatest tool to look at everything, but the exit velocity was down last year from, again, it's still, we're talking the blue areas of Savant. His max exit velocity was fine. He didn't strike out. His defense apparently was fine, outs above average. Everything else is down in the lower 30 and 20 percentiles. And he had an OPS over 1,000 against lefties when he got to Chicago. It was 739 with Oakland, and then against right-handers, he was pretty much crap. So I'm going to be honest. I know he crushes the Guardians, but this is not a needle mover for me. I don't think he's that. I know it might be a needle mover for them against the Guardians for some reason, but he will crumble against anybody it doesn't wear a Guardians jersey. That's what I'm saying. So yes, it's better than maybe them going with Romy Gonzalez, or Hanser Alberto, whatever else they were going to do. But they seem to be they're high on Romy Gonzalez, and maybe this is a Juan Uribe type move where he plays second base for like the first half, and then maybe in the second half they bring up Gonzalez or they do something else at shortstop. So he might just be a placeholder. It really depends on how things go. I mean, yeah, he had a 105 WRC plus. That was his best season since 2017. Do I really feel like he's going to hold that? I really don't. I mean, he is going to turn 34. He is 34. He'll be 35 in August. I'm not that worried. Maybe I'll be wrong. That's fine. I still feel more like the Twins are a threat than I do the White Sox right now. But, I've been saying that for a couple of years and I've been wrong. I had the Twins going to the World Series 2 years ago and they finished in last place. So maybe my advice on betting and how I feel about the Twins are all connected and they're all terrible.
They have to win a postseason game for that to happen first. I'll just be that.
Yeah. What was that? 03? Was that the last one?
I believe you're right.
Oof, that's a lot. That's 20 years. So we laughed how long the Mariners didn't make the playoffs from 2001 to 2022. But now we're going on 20 years without the Twins winning a playoff game. So that is sad. Boy, I don't know. Speaking of winning games, you've been saying this for years, and I've been saying it for a couple of years now too. Recording this while the NBA All-Star Game is going on. And look, the NBA All-Star Game itself, like the actual gameplay, to me, my personal opinion is that it stinks. This is not an NBA podcast, and you don't care about what I think about the NBA and basketball, but I think their gameplay sucks in the game. But what they do have right to me is the idea of the All-Star Draft. Like, they gave up on the Eastern Western Conference thing years ago, and they decided to go in with captains, a draft, and they even did the draft, quote unquote, live on TV today. Although clearly the picks were made ahead of time because they had jerseys ready for the players. So I don't know how fast they could have got those jerseys ready, but either way, it played out really fun on TV to watch them just go through their picks and surprise who was going where. At least the players didn't know. But look, the interleague play has been around for a long time now. The balanced schedule is here, so you're playing everybody every year, every day, or every season now. There's no misses on the schedule. The mystique of AL versus NL is long gone. I know you've talked about in the past about how the AL didn't play the NL until the World Series. There was mystique there. It's not there anymore. It's gone. Yeah. I would love to see an MLB All-Star Draft. Let's just take the top 2 vote getters like the NBA does, make them captains. Pitch. I don't know how you handle pitching. There's got to be something different there probably, but you let them pick their own teams. I would kill to watch like Shohei Ohtani pitch to Mike Trout. I would kill to watch Bryce Harper and Mike Trout on the same team. How about Shane Bieber versus Jose Ramirez? Like, to me, that would just be a lot of fun. I would love to see how they pick their teams. I have no idea how the pitching might work out at all this, but I also have other thoughts. I'll let you jump in on the format itself. I have other thoughts about scheduling the All-Star Game that I don't agree with either.
Listen, I'm not the biggest All-Star guy. I put that on paper. It's not necessarily my thing. I'm all for drafts and everything. Like, and honestly, it's like this started with hockey before the NBA. They're the ones who did the draft first. I talked about this idea that it'd be great if like the winner of the AL versus the NL would then face the winner of the Futures League. And I know that'd be really hard to do again because of pitching in the league, but I didn't know that's what the NHL was doing. And they did that. They had their 4 conferences, then face off again. I would love to see
a change,
something that makes it a little more interesting. A change other than now it matters. The World Series home field advantage is on the line. That thing. It'd be nice if it was something other than that. Something to spice it up. But again, I'm the All-Star Game hater. I'm just get rid of the darn thing. I don't care.
Oh man, boo!
I have not watched an All-Star Game in about a decade. I don't plan to watch it. I'll watch the Futures League, the Futures Game, Home Run Derby. I think Josh Hamilton, who has had all sorts of issues since he left baseball, but literally that one he had was the last time I watched it. That's the last time I watched any of these things. Are there other skills competitions outside of I don't know, because I don't care. Listen, All-Star Game, World Baseball Classic. That's my view. I don't care.
This is our biggest disagreement ever. This is our biggest disagreement we've ever had.
I don't care. I don't care about any of these things. They unless you pay me, I'm not watching the All-Star Game. Like it just, there's no interest in it with me. You'd have to pay me to get me to watch it, which is, like I said, it's sad because as a kid, I looked forward to it. My birthday was always like in the middle of baseball not happening. So it's like the rare occurrence I had a baseball game on my birthday was the All-Star game. And that was like the greatest thing ever. But it's just as an adult, like I'm like, okay, I can see these guys anytime I want. It just, I don't care. You can guarantee that I will be doing something else when the All-Star game is on.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. I'm
going to be the villain. I'm going to be the villain with this one.
I've said it before. I love the All-Star game. Because to me, I said before, the All-Star game in Major League Baseball is the closest you get to a regular season feel out of all the four sports. The rest of them, the NHL has been okay at times. The NBA is a joke. The Pro Bowl is a joke. I've said this before too. Baseball is as close as it gets, and there's nothing I love more than seeing all the stars on the field at the same time playing against each other, and they have fun doing it, and they're mic'd up, which I love. Let me tell you, I'm the opposite of you. I have not missed an All-Star game in God knows how long. Last year, I was supposed to go to a Collective Soul concert with my fiance and her family, and I actually came down. You made a poor choice. It wasn't a choice. I came down with food poisoning that next day, so I couldn't go. But that food poisoning, I ended up staying home and watching the All-Star game. I didn't miss it. I was going to miss it for the first time in a long time last year, and fate told me I had to stay home and watch it in the form of food poisoning, so I did. I go out and watch the Home Run Derby with friends every year. I never miss a Futures game. I'm telling you, I watch all of that. I love it, and I liked when it mattered, when it determined the World Series. I think it's smarter to have the best record in the World Series or have the home field, but I thought that was fun too. But I still want an MLB. I still want an All-Star draft. I do love the World Baseball.
I would actually read and see what happened to the All-Star draft. If that happened, I would look at the lineups.
And then you still wouldn't watch.
But I wouldn't watch. But at least I would pay attention to that. I would for a long time. I don't know. I have a draft addiction. I don't think I've watched a Major League Soccer match since Columbus was in the finals many years ago, back when I was still in New York. Yet I will still read every year the results of the MLS draft. It doesn't matter the league. Like the WNBA, I did even, I don't want to get myself in trouble with this. I don't follow a lot of basketball in general. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cleveland does not have a team anymore. They had a team, but I don't think they do.
WNBA right? now.
No. Yeah. So it's like there's not even like a something in the area I grew up rooting for. So it's something I've not really followed in depth at points in my life. But I always would read about the draft, even if I hadn't watched a game in 4 or 5 years. It's just purely an addiction. It's like sugar and drafts. You put it right in my veins. Those are the things that just I can't help myself when it comes to those things. But yeah, no, I don't know. Like I'd pay it like the NBA skills competition. I've always kind of liked, like as a kid, that stood out. So occasionally, like if I'm going through and that's on, but like even though I'm like curious and I'll read, I read the results of the NBA draft today. I haven't watched anything this weekend I watched like you were talking about not the home run, the slam dunk champion. I watched a replay of his dunk. That's all I have done. That's my full engagement with the All-Star NBA All-Star activities, reading an article on the draft and watching that dunk, which is about the same as in years past. At least with the MLB, I will always watch the Futures game, but the NFL's is the worst.
Oh yeah, it's not. There's no point watching the Pro Bowl.
That's the like I said, these are things that don't matter a ton to me. It's like somewhere down here, it's like my level of caring, but it's like if I'm ranking them, I think the NHL probably does it the best because they change things up a lot and there's some interesting things, like I said, doing the conferences. And I think the NBA goes next because, again, I think the skills competition is always interesting. They're at least advancing at the times, then MLB, then NFL, just in terms of like who is doing it the best and changing things up and keeping it fresh. Now, I know there's going to be old school people just booing us for all of this, especially me and my hatred of hatred. But it's not even hatred. It's not like I'm like, oh, get rid of this. I'm like, I just don't care. Yeah, it's 100% apathy.
Apathy is the worst, though. That is the worst part of it, is the apathy. Not that you hate it. Apathy
isn't that like just indicative of everything with like Major League Baseball too? It's like this should be something I love. This should be something I'm interested in. This was something I adored when I was younger. And hey, congratulations, Major League Baseball. I get paid to talk about your sport. And I sit here and can't stand the All-Star game.
Yeah. Well, I get somewhat paid for it too, and I still watch it religiously every year. I just want to see.
It's because you love
something
baseball.
new. I
it's
do,
because they're doing a good job with it.
Right. It's like I said, it's still fun to see all the stars on the same field and just see those teams together. But it would be super fun to see how teams would draft and changing all that stuff. I agree. I know there was a skills competition way back when they had at one time. I'd like to see that again, where you have like a throwing accuracy contest or hitting contest where you got to hit targets, stuff like that. And there's something like that happens in like Japan.
They should do like a beanball competition. Like just have a bunch of like see like accuracy of pitches by like they can pick a player and just be like a cutout of like they could really have fun with it. Like make some fake rivalries and run with it. I saw that it was a Japan or Korea, the bunting competition. We can skip.
Oh
that.
no, I do not need that.
We can skip that. We do not need that.
No,
that one is a no-go. Don't let Tito know that exists. I feel like that is like his like he wakes up every morning to that. Like he just has the bunting competition. That's his wake up video. Get him ready for the day.
Yeah. Let's run through some other things we want to talk about today. So these next two topics will run into each other. So John Middleton, the owner of the Phillies, had this comment over the weekend. How much money did the 27 Yankees make, or the 29 A's, or the Big Red Machine? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? Nobody knows or cares whether they made money or not, and nobody cares whether I make money or not. If my legacy is I didn't lose money owning a baseball team on an operating basis, that's pretty sad. It's about putting trophies in the cases. That is a fantastic statement, first of all.
And like, how much did he just get like Philadelphia behind him too?
Oh,
like,
they were already behind him because how good that team was last year. Yeah,
but it's such a smart statement too. Like it is like because we see like. Listen, I'm not a Dolan hater, but I'm also not a Dolan supporter. But we've also seen him make just confoundingly stupid statements to the media.
Look at the Orioles owner.
Enjoy him.
Oh geez. The Orioles owner has put his foot in his mouth like twice in 2 months. He did it a few weeks ago, and he did it again. He did it again over the weekend too with the Orioles reporters. So that guy has made 2 sets of comments in 2 months, and they're both stupid. John Middleton opens his mouth once in spring training, and everyone is going to love that speech. And he is, he's right. He is right. And I, in the past, I have argued with people about ownership in Cleveland. I have said it is a business. It is about making money. If you can't understand that, I'm sorry. And it is. I'm not going to argue that these guys don't want to make money, but I think John Middleton is right. If you are in this business to make money only, that's pretty sad. Like, I'm not saying you should go out there and lose hundreds of millions of dollars on what you're doing. Nobody expects Cleveland to spend like Philadelphia. I'm just saying, like, if you're like you said, if your legacy is that you're trying to minimize operating losses or you're trying to make money from an operating standpoint, I think you're in there for the wrong thing. Because isn't owning a sports team all about your ego? Like, yeah, it's a moneymaker, and I think the moneymaker is the appreciation and value of the team, right? Because we've seen all these guys who have sold recently that
you're getting a great return on your investment over the year term. Anything you make in a season is bonus because you're gonna. I mean, listen, in the 20 years that Dolan has owned this team, he's going to make $1 billion when he sells it, and that's not counting the year that he made a cable company for 2 years from scratch to go ahead and make another $140 million off of that
to sell it. Yeah,
like you're making billions of dollars. Like if you and I could have gotten together, gone back in time, and somehow convinced to like buy the Guardians at that cost, it's like you're retired for life. Like it's just investment around. It's one of the safest ones. And
yeah, you cut out a little bit there, so I didn't get all you were saying. But you're right. They made a great investment way back when they bought it from the Jacobs, and they're gonna whenever they do decide to sell it in full, whether it's to
Blitzer.
Well, yeah, whenever Blitzer takes over, they still stand to make a lot of money off it, and they will long term. But I'm pretty sure, even though they're not spending the money people want them to, I still think the Dolans, when they are no longer majority owners, they're minority owners to Blitzer, they're going to want a World Series title to look back at. And honestly, I'm not saying it's up to them, but if they want to be part of that, they're going to have to put some more money in. And that's what the statement is. Like, you have to put your money where your mouth is. John Middleton made that statement. His money is 100% where his mouth is right now. And he's been doing that. So the other comment too was, Jeff, you're still a little bit frozen there. So we'll see how this goes. But the comment that goes along with John Middleton's comment was Major League Baseball over the weekend implemented a economic, I think it's responsible, or some kind of economic reform committee among Major League Baseball. And we're just calling it the Major League Baseball Hates Steve Cohen group, because the only reason this exists is because they are mad at Steve Cohen for spending lots of money, and they are trying to figure out how they can punish him and how they can make other owners, or make him spend less, more like the other owners. And I find that absolutely silly. Do I love the big market teams? I don't want a salary cap because I don't want a salary floor, and I don't like the disparity because it's a problem, but I also want owners who spend more if you have the money, spend it. I don't want these owners who have money not spending it because, like John Middleton said, I'm not trying to have better operating income. That's not my legacy. If Steve Cohen is doing the same thing, kudos to him. We may hate it from a Cleveland perspective, but you know what? If it was somebody like that who owned Cleveland was doing that, we would love the guy. We would be ready to throw the guy a parade already just for the money he spent. And I know Steve Cohen has done some less than wonderful things to get his money. Yeah. Look, a lot of these billionaires have done pretty bad business for other people that has allowed them to make this money. It's called exploitation.
You don't become a billionaire unless you have. You either inherit it or you've done something
shady or illegal. And Steve Cohen has done something illegal. Steve Cohen, I believe, has an issue with some kind of crime or some sort of accusal of a crime with hedge funds.
Yeah, there's some SEC issues. I mean, he's the basis for the Damon Lewis character in Billions for a reason.
Yeah, so you know, it's not all good for Steve Cohen, but in terms of a baseball perspective, him spending that money, if he was doing it for Cleveland, we would all love it. Let's be honest. I know we hate it from the outside looking in, but Major League Baseball hates it too because their owners want to spend less money. That's why they form this stupid.
They want
committee.
to make more, and it's like when you're going to make a committee of and listen, they're also going to use we have to do this because of the TV. Like the TV contracts, by the way, are going to become the great excuse of this year. Oh yeah, everything you hear, get prepared for. Everything's going to be TV contracts, because that's the other thing. Like this was put together because of TV contracts and because Steve Cohen's caused discord amongst the owners, and some owners are getting mad. And of course, in the Steve Cohen hate group is Dick Monfort, like one of the bottom 3 owners in baseball. For as much as Dick being the keyword. I'll just state that. Like that guy is like, as much as we get angry at the Dolans at points for good reason,
could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. We aren't even a bottom 5 worst ownership group, and that's not really close. Like there are some, again, talking about the Angels. You talked about some of the stuff the Reds saying we're a nonprofit. I'm going to cut myself off before I say anything here that gets myself in trouble to that. But Dick Monfort with Colorado. I mean, yes, Colorado signed Chris Bryant. They'll occasionally spend money, but like he is also...
They're horrible still.
Yeah, well, he's like... I don't know. He's very weird in the approach of like, hey, I'm going to let people stay there forever, even when they're not a like Dan O'Dowd left Cleveland, ran that organization. They had some good years, but I mean, it was not well run. And then they fired the last, was it like Burditch or wasn't it B name?
Bridich, yeah.
Bridich. And like, they never really fully replaced him, just did some internal stuff. And
it's someone's kid who's the GM now.
Yeah.
It's someone's kid.
It's weird. It's poorly run, and a way of like, feels like he's weirdly cutting corners on like the front office side of things, which is never going to go well. But like Colorado people really dislike him. And yeah, I agree. I don't know. I'm personally all for the cap. I think a cap and a floor is a good thing. I would like a real floor. I would like a revenue split because it works in other sports. Like parity helps, right? You know, I was reading about this. 21 of the last 23 world champions, 21 of them were the top 8 in payroll. You got the Rays, no, not the Rays, the Astros and Kansas City were the only teams who were not in the last 23 years. Like it's a bit of an issue. Like you really, honestly, the Guardians don't have a chance most years.
How about instead of, this is not the conversation we should have been having, and I don't want to get too deep into it because it's a long one, but you know, they have the tax bracket tiers, right, for MLB, where if you spend this much, you get fined this much. If you spend this much, you get fined this much. Why don't they do the reverse, where if the owner doesn't spend enough money, he gets fined? Like the owner, if you spend below 60 million, you're going to get fined. Like,
well, or just like what the NBA does, where it's like, hey, if you're below that, then guess what? You're going to still pay that, and it gets split amongst your players. So
right, that's what I mean. So like, yeah,
there should be something like that. But again, that's why I am for a floor, but I'm even for this idea of something like a max ceiling with like, like, okay, there's a point where you can't go any higher, but like
a hard cap.
Like a hard cap with like it being super high, but also with like a legitimate floor. Like, but you could also put things in. So it's like, okay, so there's still a luxury tax. Well, the players would want to get rid of all luxury tax in that situation, but like, they need to do something, because it is a little bit embarrassing what some of these owners are doing in terms of and I get it to a minor degree. If you gave me a team to run, first thing I do is trade off anyone. Like if you said, okay, hey, you are the next GM of the Rockies. Okay. They decided I'm the guy they want to go to. I'm trading off everything that's not nailed down. I'm doing a complete slash and burn rebuild. I maybe sign guys in free agency to like 2-year contracts to hopefully trade them in a year. And I'm very upfront about that. Like, it's this idea of I'm looking for flippable assets. I'm looking for high performers who have not gotten opportunities, who go against scouting profiles. I'm just throwing stuff at a wall and trying to decide who are the keepers and then trying to lock those guys up. And honestly, if you do that approach, which is the approach I would do, and the approach, that you can argue teams like the Astros have done in the past, when they won that first World Series is the time they were not top 8 in payroll. You're going to have a lower payroll. Like but eventually it should rise. And unfortunately, we've seen like the opposite of this Cleveland team that really only had 2 down years, but is still, a bottom feeder for payroll.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's funny. They did this group just to hate Steve Cohen, and the TV thing is what it is.
No, and it's interesting to see it, like that there's discord amongst the owners and that they already want to like, that they're not going to approve the collective bargaining for 2026. And it's like, they are the ownership and the people, listen, the commissioner is there at the behest of the owners, but like, they're just hosing baseball. Like you're just driving away the fans. If they have another kind of like work stoppage deal, but at the same time, like they need a salary floor. And the reason I think you need a cap is I think caps would actually bring some fans back to a degree. Like there are fans who are just like, this is the only uncapped sport. Like I know people who are shocked when they hear like we had that in our group chat. Someone who doesn't follow baseball at all, but who was one of our editors of our shorts. It's like, wait, baseball doesn't have a cap. Like we've gotten to a point where that's just how sports work in the United States. So it's almost weird they don't. And parity is good for the game. And again, like I say, I'll go back to it. It's like 21 of the last 23 world champions had top 8 payrolls, which means you're one of the big market teams, win a majority of the time. And it stinks. And the Yankees have won a lot of World Series. Guess what? They also probably had the highest payrolls this year. John Middleton, I think, is a great statement from him. Good for him. But it would be nice if they need to open their books too, because we know it's shady as heck. We know teams are probably making money hand over fist. Baseball made like 6 or 8 billion last year. I can't remember how much it was. And they refused it. The only team we know about is Toronto and the Braves. And show us the books, do some kind of like 52-48 split, whatever the NBA does. And then let's just set up and make this a real parity thing where you guys work as a team. It's about like every new owner who comes in should have to agree to that idea that, because the best leagues operate basically as communist entities where they all split evenly.
We've really run long here, so I don't know if you want to.
Paul Skeens was really good at LSU. Interesting pitcher. Brendan Taylor maybe had the biggest talk of the weekend. I had some concerns because he had low exit velocities last year in general, but he pounded the ball this weekend against Vandy in Arkansas. So, I'm gonna post. I'm just gonna post in its current form on my personal website the mock I worked on in December, in January, and I'm going to then do a video rebuttal from my personal site that I will put in there, being like, what has already changed? Because I don't see any point in deleting it. I put in the work, so you can go if you want some additional stuff. Look for this week. I'll post on my Twitter. You can then find my personal YouTube and the website where I post my articles from. I will do kind of a video rebuttal based on what we've seen already on why my mock is already junk. It's hard to find time to write. But I'm just going to go ahead and post basically as the January mock that's kind of late. But Brendan Taylor is the standout. Paul Skeens looked great. Pitching wise, there wasn't as much. I was trying to think who else I was going through and pulling.
Hunter Owen, I thought looked good on Saturday. I enjoyed watching him. Rhett Lauder from Wake Forest was fantastic when I watched him on Saturday.
Wyatt Langford had a good game.
Yeah.
I was trying to think like Ohio. I don't feel like there's much in the state this year outside of Colt Emerson. I think he's like between Columbus and somewhere, and I can't think where right now. It's not a great year in the state of Ohio to catch some baseball players. See when people are coming to town to look interesting. But yeah, I wish I could give you a better info, but there's not a whole lot of big time talents that are going to be coming through the state in general.
I'm just saying in general, just watching anybody you picked up on, and as we get going in the season more, we could talk about more Cleveland specific targets, but I just enjoyed watching a ton of games over the weekend. I caught some of Tennessee and Arizona. That was fun. I caught LSU. Akron actually had a wild game. I forget who they played, but Akron tied. I think it was I forget who they tied it up late. It was 13-13.
Colton Ledbetter had some good data this weekend. I'm really intrigued to see Colton Ledbetter, Euron Watts Brown, and Mahana, the shortstop of Tennessee. I'm blanking. A high.
Oh, he's got a visa issue, or there's something going on where he is not eligible to play right now.
Okay, so all those transfer guys. I'm kind of curious. I'm watching a lot of the transfer players that I'm trying to catch up on. Yeah, those are kind of the first guys I'm looking at are the players who transferred around and seeing who is in a new conference and who is stepping up. The big thing in week one is a lot of teams play a lot of
garbage.
If you are a small school player, the first 2 months are the most important. If you are a big school guy, these are the least important. So, just kind of keep that in mind as it's going through.
I will say I did watch Liberty and Southern Miss just for Tanner Hall, and Hall pitched great. Yeah, Hall pitched great, and Garrett Horn was good too. I enjoyed Garrett Horn, so that's a name I'll be following for the rest of the season as well. And then, I think Tennessee's got another Ben Joyce on their hands. They had a guy come out of their bullpen, Andrew Lindsay, throwing almost 100 with a short arm slot, just ridiculous. I'm like, wow, great. Tennessee's got another stud reliever coming out of their pen. That should be interesting. So, so hopefully we'll be able to do some of these every once in a while, just picking up on who we find interesting in college baseball. You will probably pay attention to more college baseball than I will. Once the season gets here for Major League Baseball, at least the regular season, I will probably not watch as much because I have to focus on the Guardians minor leagues and the Guardians themselves. So I won't have as much time for college baseball as you will, but I hope to at least drop some interesting things that I saw whenever we get a chance to talk about it. So we have gone super long today.
Yeah, well, we had fun things to talk about. You got to see me doing some big theater and making some grand statements. I want to thank you all for listening, rating, and reviewing. Downloading it helps. Hit the little button and leave a comment. Today's homework is best spring training story that ended up not being a big deal. So your Casey Kotchman gets LASIK. Logan Allen is in the best shape of his life. Bobby Bradley's in the best shape of his life. Basically every best shape of their life story. Whose was your favorite? Kevin Mitchell is riding that bike. He's going to be in great shape and ready to be the DH for the Cleveland Indians. It's going to be the Kevin Mitchell who hit 47 home runs. That's going to be that's maybe mine. Kevin Mitchell and the bike. Thank you for listening, and go Guardians, go.